Welcome to On Your Own Terms. I'm Patty Talbot, and this is the place where we learn together what it takes to change the world on our own terms and in our own special ways. Today, I have a new friend with me that I have not yet met in person, but I met her through the One of Many community that's centered in the United Kingdom. And we met in one of those online kind of conversations. And when I heard what she was doing, I thought, wow, this is a woman who's got expertise that my audience needs. And she's got a different take on changing the world by setting herself up and helping other women do the same thing by helping them create financial independence by investing in property. Now, you may think of this as a little different twist on what it takes to socially and environmentally make changes in the world, because our definition of changemaker here, we have adapted from the definition at the University of Northampton in the United Kingdom. Their definition is someone who sees a social or environmental problem and has the skills and the grit to do something about it. We've adapted that definition just a little bit to include having the skills and the dispositions to work with others to do something about it. And we always focus on something related to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Well, my guest today is Caitriona Ellis. And Caitriona has overcome a difficult situation that many people face, and that is the dissolution of a marriage. And having been a professional in the business world for some time, but then making the choice to stay home with her children for some years, she was managing the books for her family household, but she was not the one earning the income. So when her marriage was falling apart, she needed to think fast about how to support herself and keep her family fed and doing well. And she has succeeded in doing exactly that. This is Caitriona Ellis, and you're going to learn her homegrown solutions for a patchwork world and a twist on how she's helping women find freedom through financial freedom and property investments. This is Caitriona Ellis. Welcome, Caitriona. I'm so delighted that you're with us today.
I'm originally from Ireland. And I've spent most of my life growing up in Ireland in the countryside. I'm a farm girl, so came from very humble beginnings. My dad is a farmer and my mum is a school teacher. But it was my mum in our household who was the main earner. So that was very unusual in that day and age. But she was a very good teacher, very good at what she did. My dad was a very different personality. He was more entrepreneurial minded. So I had very different parents coming from very different angles. So that made for an interesting, eclectic mix in the form of me. I've got one sibling, and I went to university in University College Cork. And from a very early age, it was clear in my head that I wanted to study business. I didn't know exactly, what direction it was going to go, but I just knew that world fascinated me. And during that time in university, I spent 1 year studying abroad in the Netherlands, which I absolutely adored. I got on a plane, not speaking a word of the language, not knowing a single person where I was going. But again, I was guided that I absolutely wanted to live abroad for a year. And the fact that I knew nobody or really didn't know what I was going to do was immaterial to me. I just had a very clear vision in my head. So off I went. And it turned out to be one of the most amazing years that I've spent so far. And having finished my university career, my time in university rather, I got into the working world and went straight into the banking industry, not because it really riveted me by what it offered. It was more a case at that time that there weren't very many jobs. And I was happy just to grab whatever I could get. And as it turned out, I worked with an international bank, and that then led me on to meeting my husband at the time, and then to traveling and spending a year in Australia, which again, travel was a huge part of my life. It's something that still fascinates me. I've done a lot less of it since becoming a parent, but I just love landing in somewhere unknown to me and exploring that place. And yeah, so we spent a year in Australia, absolutely loved that. Very different culture again, but thankfully we had the same language, so that was a help. And I spent lots of time in traveling around in between that as well, to America, to across Europe, and really enjoyed that period of my life. When I became a parent in 2008 for the first time, my world was totally upturned in a way I never envisaged. I was the career woman in my head, and the bit I had a vehement argument with my husband at one stage, saying that I didn't go to university to stay home with my children. What a waste of a career and all my time in university just to stay home. However, that was a very head conversation when my little bottle of joy was delivered to my arms. My feelings totally overrode my head, and it was absolutely no way was I living this precious bottle in the care of somebody else and losing the ability to spend all the time with them. So it was a total swerve for me on that one, which I don't regret for a second. I did because of circumstances. I needed to resign on my job then permanently after my second child because I was unable to continue my leave. So that was a bit of a decision. One, again, I'm happy with, but in retrospect, there's some things that I would change if I was given that time over again. So I've got three children. They are now 14, 12, and 10, two boys and a girl. I home educated them for a long time. The eldest two until they were secondary age, and they're now in secondary. And my youngest baby has just gone into primary school education here in the Isle of Man. And he's loving it because it changed the circumstances. I was divorced early this year, and that's really changed my life in a big way. Had a knock-on effect also on the kids. And it really has been a case of looking at priorities again. And because I wanted and needed to stand on my own feet financially, I couldn't home educate him and be financially independent. So a choice had to be made. As it turned out, thankfully, he is hugely happy and the move really suits him. So there's a lot less mum guilt around because of that decision. We moved to the Isle of Man, which, if for your listeners and viewers, that is a tiny little island in the middle of the Irish Sea, between Ireland on one side and the UK on the other. So it's like, what, the guys do miles? It's about 30 miles long, 15 miles wide. So it's very small. We've got a population of 80,000. We live right in the south, so the sea is just out my window. It's predominantly known for its tax benefits, but it is a beautiful, very unspoiled island. And Mother Nature is all around and very accessible, and a very big change from living from Ireland, which a lot of people see as 4 shades of green. It's changed a lot since I was a child, and it's not such an innocent place to grow up. So I wanted for our children the ability to have that innocent childhood, to be able to go to the shops and be able to meet their friends and not have to worry, be looking over their shoulder. So we moved here 8 years ago. It's a beautiful place, and that's where I'm living now. No plans to change at the moment, just because of the way the island works. Networking is very important. It's something I really enjoy doing. It's natural to me because I'm extrovert in personality type, and it's something that works really beautifully for my business because it's about conversation and it needs face to face, so you can eyeball somebody because there's huge trust involved in what I do. Social media, it's a great backup, but a in-person, ideally, or with Zoom like this, is a great second way to do it as well. So on the island, because we have such a small community, if any of us need anything, the degrees of separation between who we want to speak to and getting there, it's only just one person, is that difference. So it's very useful for us as a group, women, to support each other because we're all coming at it from very different angles. So that's lovely to be able to do that. I think for me, a lot of what I've done to date has been by accident as opposed to design. And I'm very open about that because I think as women to support other women, which is where my focus is, we have to be totally honest with each other about our journeys, about our failings, about our challenges. Because if we present everything's all singing, all dancing, or as one of my mentors says, a unicorn farting rainbows, that's not reality. We have to share how it actually is. And during COVID, I really struggled. I struggled because we overnight lost our income. So I had no income since I gave up my job after the birth of my second child. And that was all fine until we got to COVID. And my ex husband now is an airline pilot. And overnight, his income was gone, wiped out. We had no support scheme here to the degree that they had it in the UK and Ireland. So we were getting about £200, which I think is probably $250 a week or something to that effect. And we're a family of five. We have a mortgage, all the usual bills, and that there's just no way that would even touch what was going out. Thankfully for us, I had spent the previous 5 years since resigning from my job actually studying to be chief financial officer of Ellis HQ. So I was running the show in terms where when it came to my husband at the time was earning it and I was managing it. And that worked beautifully. So we put a lot of pieces in place through educating myself as to good things that were essential to securing a financial future, not preempting what was going to happen, but having an emergency fund in place as part of that. So when COVID struck, whilst it was devastating, we were okay. And we knew that we had several years of expenses covered. And we had no idea at that point as to how long this would go on. So my husband at the time was very optimistic that it would be fine and he'd be back to work a few months, but that it took over a year, I think, before he got back to work, maybe 9, 10 months, something like that. And then at that stage, he actually had to relocate to another country to do that. And each time he would come back, the rules were different. So there was so many moving pieces going on for us as everybody else had them. But the money was a real struggle. And in that period also, as happened in many houses, the cracks in our relationship began to widen because the pressure was so intense. And a lot of people say to me, if COVID hadn't happened, what if the divorce happened? And I think it probably might have happened later, but the cracks were there. They just widened. And I really struggled at that point to make a decision on the relationship because I was financially independent. And this is something I see so often. So I had to experience it myself first before I could speak about it with any authority. So I thought, okay, just never mind about what's going on outside. You need to sort your own stuff out first before you can even think of taking this farther. So I put my blinkers on and thought, okay, what am I going to do here? So I started exploring stuff like conscious uncoupling to try and get clear in my head. And I knew that I needed to be able to stand on my own 2 feet financially, to be able to make an informed, detached decision on my relationship, because I didn't want to make a decision on a relationship based on a financial dependence. And that to me was really clear. So I was set for about a year and a half, really putting everything I had into getting qualifications that I needed to take my property stuff in the direction I wanted to, and to put in place the pieces I felt I needed to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. So I got to that place or very close to it and decided, okay, I can see where this is going. It's all in a good place. I feel like I've got that independence or it's very close. Let's look at the relationship again. And we tried again for a while and it's still we couldn't get it to work. My intuition, alarm bells were saying, look, you need to walk away. But that's a very scary decision to make. You've got 3 kids. We've been together half my life, half his life. And it feels like a very scary thing to do. And to erase the future which you have in your visions all through with that person. That there's a whole grieving period and process that goes with that. So it took me a while to get my head around that. But I thankfully made the decision to have good support emotionally myself with the various coaches. And so they supported me through that to make the right decision, because ultimately nobody can make that for you. And especially when you've got 3 little people responsible, you want to make sure that you're making the right decision. You're not making it. It's not knee jerk. You're really thinking this through, and just everything pointed me in the direction of, you need to do this. Now, luckily in our situation, there's nobody else involved. It generally wasn't very contentious. Our financial stuff was split. It was clean. I did use a solicitor, but just for the purposes of making sure all our paperwork was done correctly, but nothing was contentious. It was very straightforward, thankfully. But even despite that, there were a lot of challenges. So when I got myself through the other side, I look back and dotted along in that period were numerous conversations with women telling me they were in the exact same situation. They just couldn't make the decision. And all I could do was share what I'd done myself. And by doing that, I had no idea as to the impacts that would have on the women who are hearing my answers. I couldn't advise them. I would never do that because I don't think that's not my role. But I did feel a responsibility to share my experience and to share how I felt about it and how it impacted me. No holds barred. And by doing that, there are a number of women on the island actually who made decisions about relationships that they wouldn't have made had we had not had that conversation. And I felt a responsibility in that because there were children in each of those relationships also. But those women, I met one of them last week, and to see her now and what she's doing is just wow. It's amazing. So I continue to have those stories. So by securing my own financial independence and how I did that, property was a big part of that. So I'd already spent 5 years prior to COVID educating myself on all things financial wellness and financial literacy, because despite having a business background, despite working in the banking industry for over 10 years, I didn't know such a massive amount of basic stuff that should be taught in school or by parents, but it often isn't. So I spent that time doing that. And then property was something that always interested me and I had dabbled in, but not in any very professional or strategic way. It was more accidentally falling into it. So when I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet, property was one of the pieces that could really give that to me. And I spent quite some time researching options and eventually found this amazing man and his company who are based in the northeast of England, in the Newcastle area, for anybody wanting to check it out. And he had a very low touch strategy that I could buy property. He would find it for me. He would do the refurbishment for me, and he would then manage the tenancy, the entire process. So whilst I'm sitting in the Isle of Man, I set up a company with my long-term friend from university who lives in Ireland, who also wanted to do something similar. And during COVID, in just over a 12-month period, we bought 6 properties. We never saw any of the properties. We totally trusted the individual that we were working with. We did it in a very careful way in terms of we weren't just handing over money. It was through a solicitor. It was all done in a very regulated way, but there's a huge amount of trust there. But I knew instinctively with the first conversation I had with him and the types of things that he said to me that he was a good egg. And my intuition said, do it. Try one, see how it goes. We did one. It was everything he said it would be. And then we just kept doing the same thing. So I thought, wow, I never left this island. I've got 6 in place. This is really an amazing strategy that suits women who want to get into property, who have so many balls in the air that they just can't actually be hands-on, very hands-on with property, which for a lot of males, that's the way they do it. And I thought, this works for me. Why not I tell others about it? So I started telling others about it, and they were, so I started making introductions, not knowing at that time that those introductions would then become a source of income. Which when offered to me, I thought, you're going to pay me to tell other people what you're doing. That's an absolute no-brainer. Why would I not do that? So I thought, wow, I get to build a strategy myself. I get to spread the good news to other people, be paid for that, and watch other women experience the same joy and fulfillment I have. And then if any of those women are in the position I'm in, watch them make a decision about a relationship or a job that they're in that they're not happy with, and cut ties if that's the right thing for them to do. To spread it farther, my thinking on it was, which I started to tell more people about, was I wanted it to be a legacy for my children. At the end of my life, it will pass to them so that they then have the assets to give them a choice if they decide to become a parent, or if they want to go traveling or leave a job or whatever, to step away from whatever situation they need space from and to still have money coming in with something that they don't have to do a hard grind for. This is a ripple effect. And the majority of the women I was speaking to were all mothers. So of course, when they hear the way that I'm doing it and the fact that it's rubbing off on my children already. So my eldest is 14. He's already saving for his first investment property. That's a conversation we've never had directly. But by me modeling this, he started to think, I could do that too. At 14, I'm thinking, wow, you absolutely can do that. Go for it. And the other women who are doing this also are having the same experience. So this is what started from finding a solution to solve my problem has spread to something that is really having an amazing ripple effect. The joy I get, it's amazing when we get one over the line ourselves and add another unit to our portfolio, but the joy of watching a woman who's never had a property investment ever before watch her experience that and see the joy that she gets from that, and see the penny drop that, wow, I just did one. I can do this again and again. Because of the area that we work in, they are not very expensive properties. So they're ranging at the moment from about £60,000. So I think maybe in dollars, that's probably in $90,000 area. So it makes it a lot more accessible to a lot more people. So for me, the whole piece is around empowerment with your money, so that regardless of whatever challenging situations you find yourself in, money is never a reason that you can or cannot do something. And laterally, then I've had health challenges myself. And had I not got the financial means to throw everything at it that I needed to, I would have had to make a choice on my health that would have been a second rate choice, not my first choice. The things that it has opened up to me in so many regards has far exceeded what I expected in the first place. And it's been mind blowing to see the ripple effects of a little seed of a problem spreading to something that's wow. And then at the end of last year, I was lucky enough to win the Women in Property and Construction Award in the UK for the Women in Business Club. So that was an amazing honor to see my work being recognized and really give me a boost to say, okay, this is being recognized. This is making a difference, right? How can we go bigger? This is an amazing community of women, all thinking in a very similar way, coming at it from different angles. This is a great space to drop into to actually help do that in another way and with a different community. So it all just fitted together. Interesting things come from problems, for sure. Travel has always been something that interested me personally, because I think if you stay in your own comfort zone, that will be the extent of what you know and experience. So I've always had a curiosity about learning other cultures, other languages, exploring other spaces. And whilst that has been to a degree put on hold whilst I became a mother, because that had a different focus, I think it's definitely something that's ingrained and something that is a big part of my vision as the kids get older and I can step away myself to do my own exploring, because my needs from travel are different to theirs. You have different priorities at that stage. I think the technology that we have nowadays allows us to connect through a community, which is global. But I also think that there is a very important place for in-person local communities. And I think somebody I spoke to recently talked about, when I was at university age, there was a massive thing around international trade and marketing and thinking on a bigger scale. And that's amazing. But I think we've actually gone so far down that route that we've actually forgotten our roots. And I think to do this effectively, the two need to marry together. And how that will work, I think, will vary from place to place. But just speaking my own experience, my opportunities in where I'm based are different to what I have available on an international scale. But it is very important because of the community I live in to make sure that not only on a business perspective, but on a personal perspective, that I add value and that I give back to a community which offers so much to me. So I have amazing views and walks and beaches and everything available to me, but a lot of that's available through Mother Nature, but also through efforts of my predecessors. And so I think it's important to be minded of a way that not always be looking to take, okay, what can this town, this community give to me? That we have to get back to that mindset of giving back on a local basis. And when I did a vision recently, this came up really strongly for me, that it really is about creating sustainable pockets of communities around the world that support each other. In the eastern part of the world, they have more sense of community where people will look out for each other. And it's not necessarily services and help is not provided in a money exchange. It might be through time trading or bartering or something else. But the most important thing is that if somebody has a need, that need is met through the community. And if the person has the financial wherewithal to provide for that, and if they don't, a way will always be found. Because every person has value to give, whatever that is, whether they're a very high earning consultant or somebody who is a leader. To me, it's a case of hour for hour. Their hour is as valuable as mine. Whilst in the business world, that's not the way it's viewed. So I think on a community basis, we need to remember that we need to be giving more than we're receiving, and to be of that mindset that we can look out for each other. And really, if we want to create difference in our future generations, we need to model that to our children. So that's what they experience as they grow up. But equally to have the flip side to show them that there is opportunity everywhere. For example, my eldest is he's fascinated by coffee at the moment, diving into the quality of the water, the notes of the coffee. And so I reached out to a friend who runs coffee shops at the weekend. I met him while in his coffee shop, supporting his business. I said, look, he's looking to do this. Would you be able to help? Now, we've exchanged value on a number of occasions before. I've spent a lot of time with him helping with stuff. So it was an absolute yes for him. So it's, if I'm modeling that to him, and we had a conversation with him today about that, it's the way we live, we need to ask for help. We need to ask for the help that we want, and then we'll find a way. So in this instance, it was a direct connection. But in another instance, it may be me asking a friend or putting a wide call out to say, okay, well, this is what I need. Is there anybody who can help? But I would definitely be one of the guilty ones who would say that I'm really bad at asking for help. I tried to do it all myself, which has lots of downsides. So I'm in recovery on that one, and trying to model better to my children that it's okay. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help, and it is a good thing. Because we have moved as well from such lovely community bases to becoming more insular. And I think I see that in cities as well as towns. I don't think that's immune to any part, regardless of what part of the country or world you live in. So I think we really have to try, and I think it's coming back to balance. I think that's the word that really strikes me about this, is that there are merits to both. There are challenges to both, but both have a place at the table of this and I'm bringing our world forward. And I think amazingly so, women have a huge part of that. And I see all around me, it doesn't matter where I am or who I'm speaking to, I see women on an almost daily basis stepping up, but stepping up in a bigger way. Using my own example as how I struggled with finding my place, having moved from the corporate world to motherhood, to then stepping back into the working world again, trying to find my feet in that. It took the support of many other women to help me get there. And I want to be part of those women having conversations like this and lifting other people up, because I love that expression, a rising tide raises all boats. It's not a case about me, how much can I get from me? It's a case of, okay, yeah, absolutely, I want to do this. Is there something I have that I can help you with? What do you need? Who do you need to speak to? How can I help you? Because my skill set complements what you have. And how can we help each other? Because the more feminine energy, and this isn't an anti-male piece, it's more about, again, balance. The world needs more of our feminine energy. I think we have stepped back in a big way, myself included, and we have lost our confidence. And I think stepping out of our comfort zones and following our intuition, and I think that's our guiding light for every single one of us who wants to make a difference, is we really need to listen deeply to our intuition and what our calling is. And people do get hung up on what's my purpose and why am I here? And I think, yeah, I have a bigger vision, but on a day-to-day basis, it's okay. What do I think I need to do? Today it was phone a friend and go sit in the sun for 2 hours and shoot the breeze about property and about what things are going on with her and with me. And tomorrow it might be, yeah, I've got some things in my diaries, but I've got space to check in and go, okay, what do I need to do? What do I think is priority here? And sometimes that's what's on my list. And sometimes it's, you know what, I need a nap. I don't feel well. I just need to lie down. But our intuition as women is our superpower. And I think when we accept that and put the blinders and earplugs in around all the negative energy that is around, that puts it in the woo-woo camp, that puts labels on witches and all sorts of crazy nonsense on it, it's our inner guiding instinct. And I think the science is slowly catching up to that, because they're showing now that there are more neural pathways in your stomach than there are in your brain, which makes absolute total sense. Because, you know, how many of us can say you had that instinct about somebody or something and you ignored it because your head said, no, I'm sure it's fine. I think that will be the way that we as women become change makers at a bigger scale. And sometimes that bigger scale is within our own family circle, just having a conversation over a dinner or having a barbecue or whatever. And you have it on a very small level, but that conversation has an impact. And for more of us, it's on a bigger stage, but it's the same principle and it's the same threads that weaves through that. And it's about accepting that responsibility on whatever level that is. It feels so wrong to ever have to make a choice in your life that is guided by money. And how many of us, especially with current challenges, are making daily choices, multiple choices on a daily basis that are guided by money because it's such a pressure point right now. So imagine being in a space where you make a choice based on what you really think is the best thing to do. And the money is a secondary consideration. And that feels like a real privilege, but it feels like something that's very accessible. Not something I thought I'd hear myself say very shortly after divorce and very shortly after having really struggled financially through COVID. But now I know it to be true. So that's something that I really want to spread that ripple farther and wider and empower other women to do that also, because this is not a one-man show. And I see several females doing this in different guises. And to me, that's not competition. That's support for a greater cause. So I love to see more women coming at this with their own talents, their own gifts, their own slant to it, with their background, circumstances, and experience. It's just so powerful as to what they can do. One person, the difference it can make is amazing. And then when you add that community effect to it, whether it's on a local or a global community, that just going to put dynamite under it and is just going to, really expand it at such a rate that's exciting and thrilling. If my message speaks to you and if it's something that you need to address, whether that's on a financial education perspective or whether it's on the property space, then just reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. You can connect with me on Facebook under Caitriona Ellis and on LinkedIn. And they're the two main platforms that I am on, and I'll respond to your message and we can schedule a call. So there are lots of different ways. And really, initially, it's about understanding what your needs are. What do you need right now? And I don't work with a lot of people. I have a handful of clients from time to time. So it's always done in a bespoke way. So we do a checklist as to where you are, what you need, what your priorities are, and then we just go from there. And sometimes property is the answer, and sometimes it's maybe another bit of education or something, get the foundational pieces in place. So let's have a conversation, connect with me either on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and we can schedule a call and go from there. You can check more information as well about my programs on my website, which is Financial Wellness Academy. And there's information there on me, my programs, etc. And my contact details are also on the website.
Thank you, Caitriona. I am so inspired by the work that you're doing to help yourself establish financial independence, but also now sharing your lessons learned and your expertise with other women so that they can do it too. Your lessons about how to think globally, but also the importance of being able to create and invest in and serve within your own face-to-face community is really vital at this time. Because so many of us started doing our business in Zoom, we forget sometimes that value of face-to-face interactions. Folks, can you see how Caitriona is providing evidence of her skills in all 4 of the Blue Road's Changemaker skill quadrants? I want to particularly highlight for you today her doing quadrant, because we know that change makers are action-oriented people who solve problems using their creativity and innovation, and they persevere. That's exactly what Caitriona did when she was faced with the need to figure out how to provide financially for her family. She used her problem-solving, go-to, get things done skills that she's developed over many years, and she put them to work on behalf of her family. She made a plan, she has a strategy, and she's carrying through on that strategy. And it's especially inspiring to hear how her 14-year-old son is taking those lessons to heart. She is spreading the word and rippling out to make a difference. Caitriona's work directly impacts goal number 8, decent work and economic growth. And also increased equity for women and girls, because by helping women to invest in themselves and create better housing for other people and a consistent stream of income for themselves, she is giving them independence and decision-making power that we all need and deserve. So we can change the world on our own terms. Next week, you'll meet another change-making woman. And in the meantime, may you be grounded in your beingness, guided in your doingness, generous in your connectedness, and inspired in your reflectiveness, so you can change the world on your own terms. I'm Patty Talbot. I'm always learning, and I know you are too.